What's going on, everybody? It's FREEDO here for your Overwatch, and today we're going to be taking a deeper look at the new additions to the Elimination game modes that came in yesterday's big anniversary update. Not only were there 3 new maps added to Elimination, the rule set has been changed in such a way where a lot of different play styles are now enabled, and with all things considered, Elimination has taken on a new breath of life. So we're going to discuss both the 1v1 limited duel and 3v3 lockout elimination. Now personally, my favorite is the 3v3 mode because I think it helps you see the most variance of playstyles. Reason being is that there's a few different types of strategies you can go for, and most of it revolves around team comp. As we know in normal competitive play, there's a few different styles of team comp you can get to work. A lot of people have their own definitions or terminology to describe these things, but for me, I would explain it as deathball, dive, or split. And in many ways, those types of playstyles still come into effect in 3v3, however, because you're working with less pieces, having half the team, it ends up working out a little bit differently. But of course, probably the most intriguing aspect of the Lockout Elimination game mode is that because you can't replenish your heroes, and keep winning with the same strategy, it forces you to have to be creative with the different types of things you can use. After playing for the entire day yesterday, really experimenting with what worked for us or what we noticed worked for other teams that we played up against, I think I can safely say that I can isolate a few very key strategies that you're going to have to hone and be prepared for, either utilizing yourself or playing against. Now, number 1 is going to be the most scary strategy, because it's probably the easiest one to replicate, at least for us it was. Playing anything with close range and a Lucio can be terrifying for the enemy team. Remember, speed boost is still the most powerful thing in the entire game, and the fact that there's a smaller aura doesn't really affect Lucio because you only have 2 teammates anyway. They're gonna fit into your aura. If you pick speed and they don't, and you quickly run at them with close range characters, be it Mei, Reinhardt, Roadhog, Reaper, anything, you can get in on the enemy team before they have a chance to react and win the fight more or less immediately. Our favorite combination was the Reinhardt, Roadhog, Lucio combo, because with the Reinhardt in front, you don't take any damage until you get into range to get a Roadhog hook, get a free kill, and then you win the round from there. It's an incredibly devastating strategy, but you only get to use it once. Once you win with it, you're going to have to move on to other strategies, so what else do we have in our bag of tricks? Now, the next strategies you might want to move on to is deciding if you want to play characters that engage at range or at close range. Because of the nature of 3v3, you don't have to engage where you don't want to. So if you play keep away at long distance and force the enemy to engage into you, you can zone out from range and avoid damage almost altogether. And that can be a decent strategy as well. Sort of similar to you running a pick style composition in ranked mode, if you prop up your ranged characters and try to keep them alive, either through their own self-healing or your healing, and run away when the action comes close to you until you hit a shot and gain man advantage, a ranged composition can work, especially if you can find yourself in the long-range sight lines on some of these maps. I'm sure we could go on and on about different types of strategies that you could use in 3v3. Really, the sky's the limit, and it kind of depends on what the enemy team is running for what can work for you. And of course, it's going to come down to what is actually in your hero pool, which by playing this mode and sort of interacting with a lot of different types of duels and combos and synergies, I think this is a pretty great place to test out heroes in a semi-competitive setting. Because oftentimes quick play has so much to do with spawn points, how the enemy's setting up. You might not even be able to engage yourself in an actual duel in order to train a hero that you're trying to develop for yourself. Whereas in the elimination mode, you can grab 2 friends and really go in and try to hone some of the mechanics and basic interplay between your teammates to be able to strengthen your hero pool in a way that you might struggle to find in other contexts. Now, with all this being said, in review, I would say that this mode is very, very good. So good that I think that it should be ranked. There's a few suggestions that I might say could be put into place, but all things considered, the 3v3 mode is just legitimately good. It might be a bit of a shock to not play with an objective right in front of you, and you'll have to remember to play the footsie game until the time runs out to put it into the end game stage where the objective pops up. Sometimes that's going to be the best win condition for whatever situation you're in. But other than that, 3v3 elimination is a great place to hone the rules of engagement between different types of characters in Overwatch. And with that being the case, if it had a separate ranking, I think a lot of people would be very excited about it. The one suggestion I would like to see is if there was a list at the hero select screen of which heroes the enemy team have banned out. As in a list of heroes on the side, maybe, for the locked out heroes that the enemy team won with, because otherwise you're going to have to try to remember, like, okay, they won with Roadhog, Mei, Lucio, and as the match goes on, you have to sort of think progressively of when is the Hanzo going to come out, when's the Pharah going to come out, because if you pick characters that are really weak to some of those DPS classes, well, your entire strategy might just be wrecked from that point forward, and that's the most exciting thing about this 3v3 mode. It's how it develops through the counter picking and the rock, paper, scissors strategy as it moves forward, and that's why I think this could actually be a very legitimate competitive experience, to the point where it could just be a type of map that pro teams could play. I know that sounds crazy, but I think I would love to see pro teams that have 6 to 7, maybe sometimes they have a substitute, play in this kind of context where they have to specialize in their different picks. Maybe they have their full roster available, but depending on which heroes are available, they sub those players in, and we see the highest level that this 3v3 elimination has to offer. I'm not kidding, guys. I think there's some really compelling Overwatch latent in this game mode, and not to mention, we don't have a single life elimination mode in the normal ranked play set as it is now. And based upon the lockout style of it, it absolutely forces that we see an entirely different set of heroes than you might normally be used to seeing. One last suggestion that I think I'd like to see with this mode is that it requires maybe one more round to win. Right now, I believe it's set to 4, and with that being the case, there's only really going to be 9 heroes that get banned out, because obviously you win 3 rounds. That's 3 sets of 3, total of 9 heroes. By the time you win the 4th round, you're not even really that deep into your hero pool. I think if 1 or 2 more rounds were required to win, you could start to force teams to win with really unorthodox stuff, and maybe that's a bridge too far, but with 24 heroes being in the pool, I would like to see teams be forced to try to win with very odd scenarios. And with that being the case as well, it also buys more time for the enemy team to use their best heroes to try to make a comeback. Because there is some situations where you're simply just going to have a death ball when they have a comp that can't beat your death ball and you just win for free. Those rounds will happen, that you just pick the right comp and the enemy team has the wrong one and you just win. So in order to try to remove some of that randomness, I'd like to see a few more rounds to sort of even out that randomness effect. Now let's move on to talking about one-on-one. Limited duel. Now the deal with this mode is both players are given a set of 3 heroes to try to pick one against the enemy. All things considered, this is a big improvement from the old random pick duel playstyle, I think, because at the very least it gives you the option to try to counterpick and also not force you to play a hero that you desperately just won't be able to control. If you're not very comfortable on Widowmaker, but there's a Tracer that is available to be picked, at the very least, you can try to pick her while the Widowmaker runs away from you the entire time, and you sort of reenact the animated cinematic where the two duel each other forever, and eventually, of course, Widowmaker gets Mandata at the end. Although those scenarios can happen, one issue that I do have with there only being 3 selections is that oftentimes the best selection is fairly obvious. If there's a Soldier, Orisa, and a Tracer, well, it's pretty hard to pick Tracer because Soldier is just so good at self-sustaining and not dying in these situations. You gotta remember, the win condition for this 1v1 duel mode is to stay alive long enough to be able to hold the objective that's eventually going to pan out. You don't necessarily have to kill the enemy at any point. If you can simply just keep yourself alive and hold space at the middle of the map, any character that can do that is going to just simply have a better time, because there's no health pickups or any environmental help that a character like Tracer could exploit. She's going to be naturally weaker than Soldier is because she can't heal herself indefinitely like he can. You have to remember, because there is health packs on the map in a normal game mode, Tracer can utilize her mobility to get there, whereas since more or less in a duel scenario, you can just stand at the best point of ground that exists on the map and hold it, there's not a whole lot of value to have Tracer other than just to get into the enemy's face and try to delete them instantly. Now, with that being the case, there's some characters that you almost could never pick in this duel scenario. If the enemy has range or mobility, winning with a Junkrat pick is going to be very difficult. Same thing with Orisa, whereas although I think there's probably a strategy you could do to just try to stay alive with Orisa and hide until the objective point comes out, and then you stand on it with Fortify and they have to fight into you. That could be kind of scary. But other than that scenario, most of the time with only 3 picks, it seems like there's a pretty clear, obvious pick that you're going to have to pick, or else kind of be out of luck if the enemy pick the best pick as well. I found at times if the enemy decided to pick Tracer and I picked Soldier who could just heal himself, the Tracer could play almost perfectly, but by the fact that I can just heal myself, I have a lot more forgiving nature to win the duel. She only has so much health before she goes down to 0, whereas a Soldier, if I keep running away, I can heal myself. Ultimately, no matter what, this 1v1 duel scenario isn't going to be as balanced as I think the 3v3 mode can be, because either it's entirely fair and it's always the same hero, which they had before, which had its limitations and probably wasn't as fun as it could be, or you get these scenarios where, even with random selections, there's very clearly the best hero that you should be playing. But remember guys, not everything's got to have a perfect competitive balance to it. I was really hyped about the 3v3 mode. I think it is right there with being a competitively viable game mode, but I don't think we necessarily have to take every mode with the utmost seriousness that it has to fit with perfect competitive balance. 1v1 Duel is a great place to hone your mechanics. I have to say, going in there, my MMR, maybe because I got to GM now, again, I've been hovering up and down above GM or High Masters for a couple weeks now. It feels like I'm playing against some of the best players in Overwatch in the top few percent, so I kind of get my butt handed to me once in a while in this duel mode. I gotta say, you have to go in there with some competitive savagery or you are going to get wrecked in the face. One nice thing about having this pure confrontational one-on-one playstyle is it feels very obvious to me where your weaknesses are in your dueling playstyle. The mistakes are so clear that you can't point your finger to your healers or your tanks or anybody. You know what you did to mess up and lose the duel because there was nothing else going on at the time to distract you. But at the same time, you also can start to see where you might be strong. For instance, I noticed whenever I got into a Genji duel, I was able to hit shurikens at much farther range because of my range predictions with Pharah seemed to be above the norm, I guess. And I was able to chip down enemy Genjis from further range than they were able to get me. But on the same token, I very quickly realized how much I don't like playing in a Widowmaker duel, because I'd much rather surprise my enemy with smarter positioning and setting up clean, high percentage shots, which are much easier to create in a normal game environment when there's so many other players on the map, whereas in the 1v1 setting, it's so much more confrontational that you have to just purely mechanically win out face to face, and that's not really where my strengths lie as a player. So all things considered, I think both of these modes are very good for developing yourself as an Overwatch player, and I hope that Blizzard develops these modes even further. I'd like to see a few tweaks to the 1v1 mode, and I would like to see the 3v3 elimination mode be brought into competitive play, or at the very least have its own ranking system. Let me know in the comment section down below if you agree and are excited about these modes and maps. Oh, and by the way, Jeff Kaplan did say and sort of hint in the developer update that these maps could be used for different modes in the future. We didn't end up getting a new mode now, but I think they're working behind the scenes on modes for these maps right now. Blizzard is not going to release stuff until they know for sure it's done. Soon TM, remember that? That's been a Blizzard motto forever. They don't release anything until they're satisfied with it, which is a type of integrity that I have to respect with Blizzard because you don't get it everywhere else in the gaming industry, which is why I'm so glad to be an Overwatch YouTuber myself. We're in good hands with Blizzard, I think. Well, that's been it for this elimination breakdown video. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, please hit the like button because it really helps us out and lets us know that you're enjoying the content. If you haven't already, please hit subscribe because we upload each and every day, so go on and hit the bell icon so that you get notified when our videos go live. Linked in the description, you can check out our Twitter and our Discord server where you can interact with our community as well as find teammates to pair up with. Maybe you play 3v3 elimination. That's been it for me. I've been FREEDO for Your Overwatch. I'll see you guys next time.